Okay, the end of cross-examination of the victim's boyfriend at the time that she died in the Jessica Heringa case. Dakota Quayle Dyer talking about the victim as a drug user, a new parent, someone with whom he said he had a pretty good relationship with, and someone who stole money from the store where she worked. So Ken Belkin, criminal defense attorney here in New York City, paints kind of an interesting picture of the victim. What do you think the defense attorney was trying to get at there?
He's trying to maybe paint some suspicion on the boyfriend, maybe show that this victim is not all that innocent here, which is a little, she's still a victim nonetheless. She's a victim of a heinous crime. So, sabotaging her at this stage is a little, I don't know, the strategy here.
It looks like we might have possibly another witness taking the stand. At least I'm hearing what sounds like that. I'm not sure if we have the feedback completely, so let me know, folks, back there, if that's indeed what we have. Look, we've got Nicole DeBorde on the line from Houston. She's a former prosecutor, current criminal defense attorney. Nicole, there were a lot of questions here about the cell phone, the fact that the victim had a couple of cell phones, and exactly what was happening there. Maybe there's some evidence out there that police don't know about. It seemed that that was an insinuation. But before we get to that, look, it looks like we do have a feed from court. We have another witness on the stand. So let's go back to the Jeffrey Willis case in Michigan.
Sure.
Getting ready for another witness to take the stand here. I'm still here with Nicole DeBorde out of Houston, a former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney. Nicole, look, we've got this customer at the gas station where the victim worked saying that there was this other really creepy guy hanging around, and that guy isn't the defendant. What do we make of this?
I think it's sort of an interesting path where, on the one hand, trying to dirty up the complainant a little bit, which I think is a pretty questionable strategy. A lot of times when you do that, which we saw with the last witness, you run a very, very big risk of angering at least some of the jurors. The old saying goes, it doesn't matter who the person is. A life is a life. And so I think that's dangerous. On the other hand, with this witness talking about the danger of the circumstances, that there might have been somebody else around, maybe they're trying to interject a little bit of doubt into the mind.
That's what it seems like. We've got another witness who just took the stand, so let's go back live to court.
Right.
PM.
Okay. Another shift in witnesses here in the Jessica Heringa case out of Michigan. Jeffrey Willis, the defendant, facing his second murder trial after having been convicted of the murder of a young mother. Ken Belkin is a criminal defense attorney here in New York. Nicole DeBorde is in Houston, Texas. She's also a former prosecutor. Look, this case has many of the same witnesses as the first case, and I sit here and say, okay, look, I realize prosecutors can bring in a lot of witness when there is a common scheme or plan, but in the previous case, there was a mother attacked by the side of the road. What does that have to do with the attack or disappearance of someone in a gas station? Ken, do you want to take a crack at why this is all coming in at once in both trials like this?
Well, it could be relevant to show that this guy has some sort of, derangement, that he's acting on some sort of impulses, wants to be a serial killer of some kind. There was a lot of evidence introduced that he has a fascination with serial killers. So, they might be trying to paint this guy as someone who's done this before, and he did it again.
Well, we've got another witness on the stand, so let's go back. This is the Jeffrey Willis case, live out of Michigan. Another witness come and gone in the Jeffrey Willis case out of Michigan. I'm here, as I have been all afternoon, with Ken Belkin, criminal defense attorney, and Nicole DeBorde, former prosecutor, current criminal defense attorney from Houston, Texas. This is looking a lot like the Rebecca Bletch case that we saw last year. Many of the same witnesses testifying about suddenly the victim just disappearing from this gas station. The question is whether or not there's enough evidence to really tie this defendant to this particular disappearance and presumed murder. Ken, what do you think?
Well, they've got his cousin's testimony that he helped dispose of the body, so that's a big
Well, is he going to testify this time around? Because the last time around, remember, he pleaded the fifth and basically didn't add anything.
Well, this time around, I think they're expecting a different result, but, we'll have to see. But it seems like this is a redo of the trial last year, and they might be heading towards a similar conclusion as the one last year.
Well, we've got another witness sitting down. Nicole, I know we've got to talk about this with you as well here. Let's hope we can get to you after this witness. Another witness who saw something that he marked in his memory as a little bit strange in the parking lot where Jessica Herring disappeared in Michigan. She was working at the gas station. This witness saw a van pull away in a bit of a sneaky way through a back service road, and he says the van looks a lot like the pictures that investigators have of the defendant's van. Nicole DeBorde, former prosecutor, current criminal defense attorney, Houston, Texas. Is this enough to make a link, or is it just one little link in a broader chain that prosecutors are trying to show here?
I think it's one little link. And another thing that prosecutors are careful to do in cases like this is try to eliminate any questions that jurors might have in the future. If they have a possible witness that's listed in some report somewhere as having seen something, it's probably smart in a case like this one to make sure that you call those witnesses so that the jurors don't wonder later, is there some special reason they didn't call that witness to the stand? Do they know something harmful to the prosecution's case? So it seems like it didn't move the ball down the field a lot, but it was probably necessary.
I would agree here. And Ken Belkin, you tell me what you think. I think that, look, they've got to get everything on the table here. That's just being clear, being open, being transparent to the jury. But also here, Nicole and Ken, I'll ask your opinion about this. It seems that they're throwing a lot of this out there because they don't have a lot of evidence that's a really strong tie to this defendant. He apparently had some kind of computer file with the victim's name on it, but this wasn't a really big community, and he was kind of like looking at a number of women online in this really creepy way. We know that he targeted a couple of other people because we had the teenager on the stand who says, look, this is the guy who tried to abduct me. But as to this particular victim, Jessica Herring, the real link came from the cousin who said, I helped this defendant, Jeffrey Willis, hide the body, but the cousin's story doesn't check out. They went through and dug up and tried to check the ground. They brought in these cadaver dogs. No evidence that the cousin's story actually is what went down here. So they really went after this defendant based on the cousin's story, and they've got these other little pieces that kind of tie them together. But the keystone of this arch of an argument really is kind of falling apart because the cousin doesn't want to get into specifics on the witness stand, or at least that's what happened in the last case.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they have one piece of evidence that's going to clearly prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt, but they are trying to string together several smaller, less compelling pieces of evidence to try and prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And it looks like they're trying to have a little bit of a sequel to the trial of last year. And, the fact that this guy's been convicted already, it's going to be presented to the jury, and it's going to be pretty prejudicial to him.
Nicole, what do you think? First of all, if the cousin doesn't testify, if he pleads the fifth here, is the big key link just going to make the arch fall apart? I'll start with that.
Well, it worked for the prosecution before, and it could work again. It's certainly going to depend on whether or not the defense can make any inroads with this jury and helping to show that these links are really pretty weak. They weren't able to do that in the last case, and it's, like you've already mentioned, fairly similar evidence. So it will be really interesting to see whether or not the result in this very similar case is any different.
I'll get into a question that I ask here frequently. Just how far should courts ethically go in saying, well, he got convicted of murdering a mother by the side of the road, and therefore he probably also swiped this young woman, Jessica Herring, from a gas station?
Really?
How far does a court go in determining under the evidence rules that this is a common scheme or plan and that the crimes fit together?
Right. Well, really, how far should the court go and how far does the court go are two totally different questions. And the reality,
I'm putting you in the judge's seat right now, Nicole, right? and Ken.
Don't put us in the judge's seat. We're advocates. We are not impartial.
Well, that's why I'm here. I'm just asking the question because I know a lot of judges would say, hey, look, this Rebecca Bletch conviction So the evidence found, if it's relevant to this case, oh yeah, we found this piece of evidence, we found this on his computer that relates to this victim. Yeah, that can come in. I'm not arguing that, but all of the other facts that kind of are rolled together in a ball here, I know some judges that would just say, hey, look, this is just too prejudicial, and it's got nothing to do with this victim.
Well, and it really doesn't. I mean, the reality is that our Constitution and a sense of fairness dictate that the jurors should be able to consider the facts of this case to determine whether or not this defendant is guilty of the crime in front of them. And bringing up other cases and other circumstances that really just make the defendant look bad and potentially make the jurors think, well, he was a killer before, so he must be good for this one, isn't the way we really want to try cases in our courtroom. So ethically speaking, morally speaking, if we want to really follow the way a courtroom is supposed to work under our Constitution, it shouldn't work that way. Will the judge let this information in? I guess we'll see.
Well, look, I mean,
it's true. Yes, he shouldn't be tried in this case for things that happened in the past. However, it is relevant in the past, given the fact that this guy had a file that said victims on his computer and had the victim's photos in his computer. It's a little bit strange, and it begs some questions.
This is an interesting comment out of Mr. Criminal Defense Attorney Ken Belkin here, because I could turn around and say, which victim was it? Was it his victim and his cousin's victim? Or was it just victims in general, including his own victim?
I mean,
don't know.
Who's this guy? Encyclopedia Brown? Is he trying to solve crimes for the police here?
I am making no excuses about this guy's behavior. It's been said here before, and I'll say it again, that this Jeffrey Willis just seems like a sick guy. The teen who basically got away from an abduction attempt on a rural road and was cowered in a neighboring house in fear. That testimony just paints a picture of this guy as a sick, sick, sick guy. The question is, did he do it to all of the victims? And my logical side has to ask the question, well, we need strong evidence if we're going to have convictions that we can count.
But is it relevant to be injected into this proceeding?
Again, yes, that's the exact question. So, look, Nicole DeBorde, former prosecutor, current criminal defense attorney, Houston, Texas. Great to see you again here on Law and Crime. Ken Belkin, criminal defense attorney, New York City. Wish we had a little bit more time to talk. This trial will be back live at 9:30 in the morning, so be sure to join us for more in the Jeffrey Willis case. We, of course, are always live from at least 9 until at least 5 here on the Law and Crime Network. We'll see you back here tomorrow. For now, this is Aaron Keller, and for everybody here, have a good evening.